Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content. Subscribe and turn on notifications. Honey, can you grab the car keys for me? I parked on the street because the trash can was blocking the driveway. See if you can put it back where it goes and pull the car in. Ashley's voice was light, casual, but there was an edge in the way she moved, an imperceptible hurriedness that seemed to ripple through the air. She stepped inside, balancing her purse on her shoulder with that careful grace she always carried, the kind that made every step deliberate, almost like a performance meant to mask something she didn't want to reveal. Noah, lingering in the kitchen with his spoon suspended over a bowl of cereal, felt the familiar rhythm of their home shift ever so slightly, as if some invisible weight had been added to the atmosphere. He responded automatically, "Sure," and moved toward the living room, drawn by routine, by the habits that had bound their lives together for years, unaware that the ordinary moment about to unfold would fracture his perception in ways he couldn't yet comprehend. Her purse was tossed on the couch, casual, unremarkable, yet it contained more than the typical clutter of daily life. Noah's fingers brushed against it, unzipping the side pocket, and his touch found a folded piece of paper tucked neatly among the wallet and the perfume bottle. It was a receipt. At first, he barely registered it, but the bold letters at the top, Hillside Bar and Grill, made his chest tighten. Hillside Bar and Grill, a place far from their usual haunts. Expensive, a restaurant where the ordinary rules of weekday dinners didn't apply. The date was yesterday. The time matched precisely with the office meeting she had claimed was the reason she had stayed late. His gaze scanned the details, the 2 main courses, the bottle of wine, and he froze as the realization settled in. Ashley had always avoided wine during the week, citing discipline and focus. And here it was, in black and white, evidence that contradicted the woman he thought he knew intimately. The paper trembled slightly in his fingers, not from a draft or the movement of the house, but from the weight of implication it carried, the subtle confirmation that the life he had lived beside her might have been built on carefully crafted illusions. Noah folded the receipt exactly as he had found it, sliding it back into the purse with a precision that was automatic, a quiet attempt to hold on to normalcy, to forestall the inevitable unraveling that had already begun in the quiet corners of his mind. Outside, he followed the motions he had performed countless times before, dragging the trash can back to its usual spot, sliding Ashley's car into the garage, every movement deliberate, calm, routine. Yet each step, each shift of weight, felt charged, filled with an almost electric awareness that he was no longer moving through a familiar life. Inside the house, the sound of the shower echoed from the bathroom, Ashley's hair slick and wet from the water, her body behind the curtain moving with the casual rhythm of someone who believed themselves alone in their space. Noah stood in the kitchen, opening the refrigerator, staring at the mundane arrangement of food and drinks, hoping perhaps for some anchor to tether him back to a sense of normality. Milk, juice, leftovers, each item perfectly ordinary. Yet in that moment they offered no comfort. The house felt different, weighted, almost as if the walls themselves had absorbed a tension he could not yet name. Ashley emerged later, hair damp, dressed in the comfort of her usual sweats, and suggested they watch their show. Her voice was familiar, soothing in its tone, but now it carried an undercurrent of something distant, rehearsed, a performance for him that he could feel in his chest but not touch. Noah sat beside her on the couch, trying to engage in small talk about work issues, about mundane client problems, attempting to anchor his thoughts, yet each word she spoke seemed distant, rehearsed, detached, echoing from some life he no longer fully inhabited. As the evening unfolded, the ordinary rituals of their shared life became a lens for scrutiny. Every laugh she gave, every glance toward her phone seemed to carry hidden meaning, coded signals that teased at realities he had not yet uncovered. Noah felt the subtle rhythm of the house, the ticking of the wall clock, each creak in the floorboards, every small sound amplified, marking the empty spaces left behind by a truth he hadn't yet faced. The days that followed unfolded with a new tension, a sharpened perception. Noah observed every detail with the precision of a man quietly mapping the fractures in a world he had once assumed was secure. Ashley's morning routines lengthened. She lingered before mirrors with a purpose that didn't match her claimed fatigue. She dressed in subtly new ways. Her perfume changed. Her laughter when reading messages from her phone hinted at joy he wasn't included in. She began suggesting space, separation, moments where they pursued individual activities under the guise of stress or workload. Each excuse sounded polished, too well practiced, yet presented with a veneer of sincerity that made confrontation difficult. Noah stored each observation like fragments of a puzzle, each small anomaly a piece of a larger, unseen picture he feared to reveal to himself. One morning, she left for an alleged off-site meeting, leaving the house in a flurry of precision and haste. Noah, heart-pounding, moved silently to the bedroom, searching the planner she used meticulously, only to find a single red slash marking the day, a void in the schedule that shouldn't exist. He set it back exactly as he had found it, absorbing the strange quiet of her absence, aware of the perfume she had left lingering in the air, a scent now carrying unfamiliar implications. That afternoon, Ashley returned, carrying takeout, brimming with a vitality that did not align with the exhaustion she claimed, recounting stories of co-workers in a voice careful to avoid missteps, even correcting pronouns mid-sentence, as if rehearsing the narrative she presented. Noah pretended to engage, pretending to overlook each oddity, pretending to live the normal life he had known. Yet internally, he cataloged each gesture, each laugh, each new object he had never seen at home. Bright lipstick, unfamiliar earrings, tiny markers of a life he was not invited to witness. The week continued in this strange, suspended rhythm. Weekends, once predictable, now carried tension. Ashley refused shared activities, citing work or rest, her hours in her room lengthening, her face illuminated by screens whose content she carefully shielded from view. Noah felt a creeping anxiety, lying awake at night, attuned to the smallest sounds, the creaks, the clicks, the shifts in her presence. He began to feel like a stranger in his own home, a ghost passing through spaces that once felt familiar, now populated with the silent evidence of absence, of hidden lives intersecting with his own in ways he could neither ignore nor confront. The lack of confrontation, the silent distance, pressed upon him as if each hug, each casual word, was merely a formality, a performance maintaining the illusion of unity, while the reality diverged, quietly, inexorably, into unknown territory. Days merged into a taut, almost unbearable rhythm, a series of ordinary actions transformed into evidence-laden moments under Noah's sharpened scrutiny. Each sunrise seemed to illuminate new inconsistencies, subtle changes in Ashley's behavior that, at first glance, might have appeared innocuous. But to Noah's now hyper-attuned perception, they were glaring signals that their shared life was fracturing. She began lingering longer in front of mirrors, her movements meticulous, almost ritualistic, adjusting hair, perfume, and makeup with a care that contrasted starkly against the casual exhaustion she had claimed during the week. Morning routines extended into hours. Her footsteps through the house carried an air of intention rather than casual habit. Text messages became a private language she shared with someone beyond his vision, her phone an opaque window into an unseen world. She smiled at messages he couldn't see, laughed at screens he wasn't invited to read, and then flipped the phone face down with a subtle motion that spoke volumes in its secrecy. Conversations that once held warmth and ease now contained silences too deliberate to be accidental, pauses that seemed rehearsed, rehearsals for a performance he could no longer understand but could not ignore. Noah cataloged these behaviors with an intensity that left him drained by evening, each detail a puzzle piece slowly forming an image he feared to confront yet could not resist mapping. The ordinary rhythms of life, cooking, cleaning, shared television shows, became theater, each gesture imbued with meaning he could not yet fully decipher. One Wednesday morning crystallized his growing unease into tangible suspicion. Ashley rushed out, claiming a meeting off-site, and the house fell into a silence heavy with possibility. Noah moved as if on instinct, navigating the rooms with careful steps, each movement calculated, rehearsed, a mirror to the meticulousness he now recognized in her own daily choreography. He opened the drawer where she kept her planner, an artifact she had always used with obsessive diligence, a record of her commitments, her life mapped in ink and color. That day's page contained a single red slash, a void, an anomaly so glaring that it forced him to acknowledge the gap between her story and the evidence before him. He touched the paper gently, as if the planner itself could reveal answers he was not yet prepared to hear, and replaced it exactly as he had found it. Even the lingering scent of her perfume in the room carried a note of unfamiliarity, sharp and sweet, a scent now marking a space that felt less like home and more like a threshold to an unknown reality. The small, calculated act of replacing the planner became a ritual of restraint, a silent promise to observe before confronting, to gather proof before demanding explanation. Afternoon light filtered through the windows, catching the edges of the furniture and objects he now scrutinized with new awareness. Unfamiliar lipstick tubes, earrings too long and delicate to belong to the woman he had known intimately, each one a marker of her life beyond him. As the week progressed, Noah's world contracted around observation and reflection, a life lived through the lens of cautious vigilance. Ashley returned home with takeout in hand one evening, her demeanor bright, almost buoyant, a stark contrast to the tales of exhaustion she had narrated each morning. Her laughter filled the house, a carefully modulated sound, and the stories she recounted of co-workers and casual incidents were rehearsed with subtle self-corrections, moments when she stumbled over a pronoun and quickly corrected herself, an unconscious signal that the narrative she presented was meticulously curated. Noah listened, nodded, smiled, each reaction outwardly ordinary, but internally cataloged, indexed, stored as data points to be cross-referenced in the ongoing internal investigation he conducted with quiet obsession. Weekends, once safe havens of shared domesticity, became arenas of subtle tension. Ashley avoided routines they had shared for years. Grocery shopping, movies, even simple errands became impossible to schedule, thwarted by claims of fatigue, overwork, or the need for personal space. She retreated to her room for long hours, headphones on, face lit by the glow of a screen, laughter rising in controlled bursts, yet always shielded from his gaze, a barrier between their once intimate worlds. Noah's own life narrowed into a rhythm of quiet observation, a silent stalking of the familiar made strange. Nights became long and haunted, his body aware of every sound, creaks in the floorboards, the subtle clicks of her phone, the shifting of furniture, as if the house itself was conspiring to reveal secrets in its groans. Sleep became a fragile, punctured state, where dreams collided with memories and fears, a jumble of voices and blurred images, locked doors, footsteps echoing in corridors that no longer felt his own. Anxiety seeped into his chest, a slow, persistent ache, each hug from Ashley a perfunctory gesture, each word a performance carefully crafted to conceal truth while maintaining the facade of normalcy. He learned to navigate this duality, pretending outwardly a ghost in his own life, all the while collecting fragments of evidence that each small anomaly produced. A perfume bottle, a lipstick, a pair of earrings. Objects once mundane became symbols of absence, silent markers of a life she'd begun to lead without him, with someone he could not see, could not name, could not yet confront. The tipping point arrived not with confrontation, but with discovery. One quiet afternoon, when Ashley had retreated to the shower, Noah moved through the house with the precision of a man quietly mapping a battlefield. He opened her purse once more, hands trembling slightly as they encountered unfamiliar items. Bright lipstick, a pair of earrings too ornate for her usual style. Sitting on the couch, he held them in his hands, imagining the life she led beyond these walls, the routines and rituals that she carefully kept hidden from him. Each object told a story he had long suspected but had not dared to confirm. The room, filled with the soft hum of running water from the bathroom, carried the weight of absence, a silent testimony to the distance she had carved between them. Noah replaced the items with the same care, each movement deliberate, a ritual of observation, restraint, and preparation. He stood by the window, looking out over the familiar streets, feeling a sense of loss creeping ahead of confrontation, a realization that some things, once broken, could never be reclaimed. When Ashley emerged, hair damp, smiling as if nothing had occurred, Noah offered a hollow, automatic smile, a mask concealing the storm gathering quietly behind his eyes. He made a silent decision in that instant: continue observing, collect proof, understand fully before choosing action, for knowledge was power, and ignorance was no longer a refuge. By the following week, Noah's patience and vigilance had reached a critical threshold. Ashley's patterns grew more audacious, her absences longer, her laughter at unseen messages more frequent, her energy mismatched to the exhaustion she professed. Each anomaly, each carefully curated gesture, reinforced the growing clarity in his mind. Finally, in a moment of quiet resolve, he contacted his cousin Patrick, someone whose experience in investigations and private security was unmatched in his personal life, and recounted the unfolding behavior, the small anomalies, the receipt, the unknown perfumes, the objects, the shifts in routine, every observation catalogued in meticulous detail. Patrick listened in silence, heavy breathing the only acknowledgement over the line. "Give me a week," he said, a promise of intervention, a professional lens on a deeply personal mystery. Noah lived the following days like a specter, participating outwardly in life, answering questions, helping with chores, maintaining the illusion of normality, all while the gears of silent investigation turned in the shadows of his consciousness. Each creak of the floorboards, each subtle gesture from Ashley, each carefully timed laugh became a note in a symphony of suspicion, the melody of a life quietly diverging into another realm he was only beginning to map. The week stretched taut, each day a fragile extension of Noah's quiet vigilance, until the moment of revelation arrived like a slow, inevitable storm. Patrick, his cousin and confidant in the shadows of unfolding betrayal, appeared quietly at the gate, the soft crunch of tires announcing his presence long before his footsteps reached the porch. Noah's hand trembled slightly as he opened the gate, his pulse marking each second with a weight he could feel in his chest. Patrick carried a plain envelope, heavy with the promise of clarity, and handed it over without a word, the silence between them charged with the gravity of what it contained. Noah, closing the door behind him, felt the familiar tension of the house press in from every corner. The living room, ordinary in appearance, seemed transformed into a stage for the truth he had both dreaded and desired. Sitting carefully, he slid open the envelope and drew out the photographs Patrick had taken, each image a frame in a story he had feared to confront. The first photo showed Ashley entering a hotel, the black dress from the night before, hugging her in a way he had never witnessed in private. Beside her was a man tall, dark-haired, well-dressed, a stranger in the narrative of his life, yet intimately entwined with the woman he had loved. Laughter froze him, the kind of sudden, unambiguous laughter that cannot be misread. The physical closeness, the hand-holding, the subtle brushes of skin on skin, all undeniable proof that the life he thought shared was intersecting with another. Each photograph he turned over carried the weight of betrayal, a meticulous, undeniable record of what had remained hidden in plain sight. His stomach lurched, his knees felt like soft clay beneath him, the floor shifting in a surreal haze as the images turned suspicion into fact. The world he had moved through so confidently, performing the roles of husband, partner, and confidant, felt suddenly alien, hollowed out by the quiet truth he could no longer ignore. Noah rose from the couch, suitcase in hand, the weight of years compressed into a single, decisive action. He moved through the house with deliberate calm, passing through rooms that had once been familiar and now felt charged with invisible narratives. He gathered only essentials: documents, a toothbrush, his charger, a sweater Ashley had gifted years ago, each item a tether to the life he was leaving behind, not in anger, but in preservation of dignity. The photographs were laid on the coffee table with quiet intent, straight, visible, a silent testament to the truth that could no longer be denied. He did not leave a note. He did not demand explanations. There was no confrontation, no shouting, no bitter recrimination. Each step he took toward the door was an act of reclamation, a quiet assertion of autonomy, a refusal to allow deception to dictate the terms of his life. Crossing the threshold, suitcase in hand, he felt the strange, almost liberating sensation of control, a power that came not from revenge, but from the simple, profound act of choosing to leave behind the hollow certainty of appearances for the unknown promise of self-determination. Hours later, when Ashley returned, the house was silent. Her eyes fell on the envelope, on the photographs carefully arranged as if to form a gallery of truth, and the expression that crossed her face was neither anger nor confusion, but a pale, rigid shock. Her hands trembled slightly as she rested them on her knees, and for the first time, the composed mask she had worn for so long faltered. The quiet engulfed her, the weight of her choices made tangible in the absence of the man she had deceived. Noah's departure had been final, precise, a statement made without words, and the house, previously a theater of deception, now became a gallery of the consequences of her actions. In the days and months that followed, the passage of time reshaped them both. 15 years later, Noah had rebuilt a life of quiet stability, a life shaped not by the scars of betrayal, but by the careful cultivation of trust, love, and purpose. Chance, like a gentle hand guiding the course of fate, brought him to Megan, a woman whose presence was unassuming yet profoundly grounding. Their first meeting, over a travel book in a small downtown bookstore, carried the sweetness of ordinary beginnings, the simplicity of a connection untouched by past complexities. Conversation blossomed effortlessly, a rhythm that felt natural, authentic, and unburdened by suspicion. From that initial spark, habit grew, routine followed, and a home was slowly established, one defined by shared laughter, quiet evenings, and the building of trust in a way Noah had thought impossible after the fractures of his previous life. Then came their son, a living testament to renewal, a being whose humor reflected his mother's and whose eyes carried Noah's own, a living bridge between past and present, an embodiment of hope and continuity that had once felt unattainable. Life, as it often does, presented moments that collided past and present with unrelenting precision. One ordinary Monday, Noah and Megan walked together through the main entrance of their son's school, carrying paperwork for a parent-teacher meeting, exchanging casual remarks, the weight of routine pressing pleasantly against the edges of their conversation. Noah's attention, however, was drawn by a familiar presence. Ashley, standing near the central table, posture straight, her hair pulled back simply, her face lined with years that had not been kind, her expression subdued yet professional, she presented herself as if navigating a world that demanded both composure and distance. Noah felt the familiar stirrings of history, a momentary tug at memory and emotion, but it was tempered by the life he had built since, by the presence of Megan, who remained quietly observant yet unwaveringly supportive. The meeting commenced with procedural discussions, Ashley using a meticulous professional tone, praising his son's abilities, noting his responsibilities, each observation carefully recorded, her eyes occasionally flicking toward him, carrying brief, fleeting expressions that hinted at acknowledgement, regret, or perhaps a recognition of what had been lost. Megan, graceful in her quiet understanding, remained by his side, allowing the moment to unfold without intrusion, offering a silent reassurance that their present was solid, undisturbed by echoes of the past. As the meeting concluded, Ashley thanked them, her voice carrying a tremor of vulnerability beneath the professional cadence, a subtle acknowledgement of moments that could not be undone. Noah offered a measured, neutral expression, neither bitter nor resentful, but carrying the quiet weight of experience and the clarity of someone who had chosen to reclaim life on his own terms. Their exit was calm, deliberate, Megan leading with gentle assurance, Noah absorbing the finality of closure as they stepped into the sunlight outside, leaving behind a room where history and memory converged, but could no longer dictate the terms of his existence. Walking through the parking lot, Noah's gaze lingered briefly on Ashley, seated once more at the table, eyes fixed on her work, avoiding confrontation, avoiding the person who had once been central to her world. She did not watch them leave, did not call out, did not attempt to bridge the chasm created by years of choices and consequences. She remained in place, a figure shaped by reflection and experience, carrying her own story forward with the weight of absence as her companion. Time, relentless in its passage, reshaped the remnants of the past into quiet, unintrusive memories. Ashley navigated a world without children or steady companionship, her professional life gradually giving way to introspection and transformation. She pursued teaching, a vocation that grounded her, allowing her to engage with the tangible human elements of life she had neglected, creating purpose where ambition had once been hollow. Noah, meanwhile, cultivated a life rich in trust and simplicity, each moment with Megan and their son a testament to the choice he had made to step away without bitterness. Encounters with Ashley became rare, fleeting, reminders of what had been, yet they existed without the potency to destabilize the life he had carefully reconstructed. Their final meeting in the schoolroom served as the silent punctuation mark to a chapter that had long demanded closure. Noah, lying later that night beside Megan, feeling the even rise and fall of her breath, recognized that peace was not the absence of pain, but the deliberate choice to navigate life with integrity, to honor experiences without allowing them to imprison the present. Ashley existed now as a memory, vivid yet untouchable, a presence in history but not in his ongoing narrative, a proof of resilience, self-preservation, and the quiet triumph of moving forward with grace, understanding, and the ability to love again, fully, without hesitation, without fear, and without the shadows of past betrayals clouding the luminous present.